Hello and welcome to Law Tech Talks. I'm your host, Nikita Agarwal, and in this four-part podcast series, I'll be talking to Professor Mari Sarko and Dr. Richard Parnham of the University of Oxford's Said Business School. They recently led a study for the Solicitors Regulation Authority, examining the use of technology and innovation in the UK legal services sector. On this episode, we'll hear from Mari about the latest trends in innovation and technology adoption in UK legal services, including the main drivers and barriers to innovating and using legal technology, and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mari, welcome to Law Tech Talks. I wondered if you could begin by explaining to us what you mean by legal technology adoption on the one hand and innovation on the other. Aren't these one and the same thing?
Okay, so legal tech or law tech, and these we use interchangeably, are technologies that aim to support, supplement, or replace traditional methods for delivering legal services. So, for example, automating documents or chatbots may replace lawyers, but interactive websites and artificial intelligence in some use cases would support, supplement, or augment what lawyers do. So that's legal tech. Innovation, we define in a narrow way. So I'm aware that it could be encompassing wide-ranging change initiatives, including culture change, but we stuck to product delivery and market innovation. So introducing new or significantly improved service offerings is product innovation. Delivery and market innovation are basically about improving the ways in which you deliver or market your service offerings. So innovation and law tech are related. Some innovation, like online portals for clients to track their matter requires technology, but others, like combining legal and non-legal services, let's say funeral, wills, and probate, do not depend on new technology.
I see. And so, the legal services sector, the legal profession particularly, it's often perceived as very traditional, not the most innovative or technologically advanced sector of the economy. Is this perception now out of date, in your opinion?
Well, I think the legal profession and the legal service sectors are quite varied. So it's difficult to just say in one breath how everything will change. But I think it is fair to say that at this particular juncture, because in part of COVID-19 lockdown and in part because of the advent of artificial intelligence, that traditional tasks of giving bespoke legal advice will continue, but they'll be assisted and supported in a very different way by both technology and data.
I see. So why don't we dig a bit deeper into that? And, what has your study uncovered in terms of innovation and legal technology adoption?
Yeah, so our study, I think, has been quite timely. We did an online survey with nearly 900 responses from SRA-regulated firms in the spring of this year. We also did 50-plus interviews. And with that in mind, we asked a question about changes in the last 12 months. And over half of the respondents in the survey improved or increased use of existing technology. Just under half made changes to deliver services and a third to introduce new technology. So with respect to innovation, much of the purpose of innovation was to manage or improve the process of managing work. And a lot of the changes were to do with inward-facing rather than outward-facing changes with respect to innovation. With respect to legal technology, we saw quite a lot of changes in video conferencing with clients, as you might imagine, and also storing data in the cloud. And we also asked about future use. And I think here we found that increased in use of the types of technologies like interactive websites and chatbots, where interaction with users is the center for the purpose of technology, has been the main trend in the respondents.
So to clarify then, you've seen more inward-facing innovation, meaning within a firm, but you've seen most legal technology adoption kind of outward-facing, so with interaction with clients, or is that right?
Yeah. I think that's a good way of summarizing. Yeah.
And so what then do you think are the emergent risks and opportunities resulting from the use of legal technology?
I think when we talk about risks, and I'm glad you asked about risks and opportunities, but risks tend to be downside risk. And so we tend to think of things like technology posing risks around confidentiality, privacy, and other kinds of cybersecurity like infringement. But it's probably important to think of technology as a double-edged sword with respect to risks. So on the one hand, we found in a survey and also in interviews that people thought that technology adoption would lead to greater risks with things like not really getting the anticipated result that you'd expected, to breaches in all kinds of things that you don't want to have with respect to clients. But we have to remember that some of the study interviewees in particular are keen to point out technology could mitigate risks. So preserving privacy or actually getting up anti-money laundering risks, for example, you can do that better with machines because machines make less mistakes than humans.
And what do you think are the main drivers of technological adoption in legal services?
So we asked a question around the purpose of innovating and technology adoption. And a lot of them are, again, around improving service quality to clients, improving the efficiency of the workflows inside the firm, and allowing staff to work more flexible. I guess that's to do with remote working included, and then reducing the overall cost of service delivery as well. And not least, the fifth most important purpose in innovating was very much to do with increasing security and compliance as well. So there's a variety of reasons why, and a lot of these reasons are overlapping because the respondents could take up to 3 responses as well. So there really isn't a single dominant purpose for innovating and adopting legal technology.
And have there been sort of regulatory changes or legal changes that have facilitated legal adoption of legal technology?
I think that's a complex issue around a whole set of changes around how to promote innovation and legal technology that is around also complying with some of the regulations that's in place. So again, regulation may be like risk is a double-edged sword as well. But I don't think that there is a single point at which we can say that this is a particular change in regulation or policy that's led to greater innovation. If anything, I would think of the COVID-19 lockdown as maybe the main driver for a step change in attitude towards legal technology adoption.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit more about the impact of COVID-19. What does it mean for the types of technology that legal services providers are using or planning to use?
Yeah, so not surprisingly, some of these technologies are in some way related to the enforced remote working. So video conferencing with clients, we found that nearly 90% of the respondents in the survey said that they're using that. Storing data in the cloud seems to be quite a big step change for many of the practices. We also have e-verification or e-signature as the mode for dealing with documents. So these, I think, are all to do with COVID-19. Of course, trends were there before, I would say, but the COVID-19 lockdown have really accelerated the use of these different types of technologies.
And so if, working from home has been a big driver of these trends, do you think they're going to outlive the pandemic?
Difficult to predict 100%, but we did ask whether they thought that these changes were permanent, and overwhelming majority said that they would be. So I suspect that it would be not something that's reversible. They will work on it. Just like, contactless payment has really taken off and it's not going to get back to cash economy. I think it's going to be something that's going to be building on this. And interestingly enough, we also asked about future plans. And there we had things like online portals and interactive websites and chatbots or virtual assistants. So emphasis very much for the future plan on increasing the interactivity with clients as the main sort of way in which they implement legal technology. I think that's quite interesting.
Absolutely. So it's a space to watch. And so we talked about drivers of technological adoption. What about the barriers to innovation? What did your study uncover?
Sure. So systematically with the online survey with nearly 900 respondents, we found that among those respondents who are already adopting technology, they thought that a lack of financial capital to invest in technology, also a lack of expertise, staff expertise to assess and implement technology, and thirdly, regulatory uncertainty or barrier were the main ones cited. By contrast, among the non-adopters, so those respondents who have not thought about and are not planning to adopt legal technology, they felt that things like uncertainty about the expected business benefits, not being a strategic priority, or just the perception that it's actually not needed at the firm were dominant. So here, it's really not about technology per se, but it's the fit between technology and what the firm thinks it's doing that seems to be a barrier. So quite significant difference between the adopters and the non-adopters.
And could you tell us a bit more about the regulatory barriers that that your study highlighted, and maybe some of the ways in which these barriers could be lowered?
Sure. So we did ask explicitly about the regulatory barriers and what they were and what they thought that regulators can do to lower the barriers. So what they were, the top three were firstly, client confidentiality and data protection requirements, which they thought were quite onerous and complex and opaque in some cases. Secondly, this is to do with professional indemnity insurance requirements, where the coverage of the insurance, what is covered and what is not covered, in some people's views were not clear enough. And then thirdly, not knowing if wider regulation and legislation allow what we are considering in terms of legal tech adoption. So a lot of the proactive action that the respondents are looking towards regulators is further guidance on clarifying the existing regulation so that they can be more certain about what can be done and what cannot be done. And also attempting to lower the information asymmetry and the cost of searching for appropriate legal products or legal technology as well. There's a lot of time and effort spent, I think, by some firms to try and search in the market for an appropriate solution, and they're finding it really difficult.
And so how do these barriers to innovation vary between different segments of the legal services markets?
So the legal services market could be segmented in different ways, but one major segmentation that we looked at is the difference by client base. So we called the client segment with individuals and small firm as people law, and the client segment with big, large corporations as big law. And comparing people law and big law, we found that the three major barriers to legal technology adoption, namely financial capital or lack thereof, staff expertise, lack thereof, and regulatory barriers and uncertainty, all of those are found to be much higher in the people law segment than in the big law segment. We go into potential reasons for this, but of course, in many cases, you can imagine that big law are much more resourceful in both human capital and financial capital. But the lack of regulatory certainty that's faced by people law more than by big law is a bit of a puzzle for us.
And so we'll talk more about market segmentation on the next episode. So Mari, it was wonderful chatting to you. Thank you so much for your insights, and we look forward to hearing from you again.